Thank you, Ria, for that introduction. And thank you for inviting me to speak at the Retail Week Be Inspired conference. I don't know about you, but can you imagine having a work-life balance that inspires you, that energizes you and those around you? Not just on a Tuesday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, but every single minute of the time that you're in work. That's my passion. That's what I want to do, what I strive to do. And at my business, Let's Reset, that's what we're trying to do and engaging businesses to think about. So this afternoon, what I'm going to talk about is how we can create cultures of kindness and how you can measure your own well-being and performance. My first job was in retail. I was 15 years old and I worked in a small shop called Pier and Surf in Perranporth in Cornwall. I don't know if any of you know Perranporth, but it's a lovely town just by the sea. And I worked for a fabulous man called John Heath. And John used to stand at the corner of the shop and he'd stand at the doorway and he'd welcome all the customers in. He'd get us all youngsters to make sure that we talk to customers, that we taught people how to surf. Very often you'd find us there with our surfboards on the floor, teaching people how to balance. He brought skateboarding into the UK. He even put a skateboarding park in his back garden so that we could go and skateboard. When we did really good things, he'd buy us a donut. And at the end of the season, if we managed to meet our targets, and they were quite tough, he would enable us to have a brilliant beach party. Often early morning, I'd go for a surf before work, and if the surf was up, then we'd be allowed to go surfing during the day. It was a dream job, but he taught me two really, really important things: a culture of kindness and compassion, and the importance of how your well-being can link to your performance. Now, you might say, look, Suki, it's dead easy, isn't it? In a little town in Cornwall when it's one shop. But we're a retailer and we've got thousands of employees, we've got thousands of customers. It's just not realistic to create cultures of kindness. But I challenge you to really think about that. I challenge you to put well-being at the heart of the organization, because I've seen through working with businesses like Benefit Cosmetics, NatWest Bank, ITV, Direct Line, that it is possible to create commercial outcomes and create a culture of kindness. And I think this is the time to rethink about it. And when I look at those businesses, there are 5 things that all of those businesses do. And the first one is this: yourself. If you can't care for your own well-being, you can't care for those people around you. Do you remember those times when we used to fly on aeroplanes? Oh, I so am looking forward to it again. And when the attendant stands up in front of you and says, if something happens, make sure that you put your own oxygen mask on, but first, before you care for the others around you. And you know, you sit there and go, of course I do that. So why is it that when we're asked to care for our own well-being, we don't? You know, the most important person is not your employee. It's not your mum. It's not even your dad or your daughter or your son. And it's definitely not your boss. The most important person in your life is you. You need to look after your own well-being in order to look after those around you. The second one is to improve your well-being at work. Well-being has to be a strategic priority. It has to be measured right at the boardroom. You need to have leaders who are willing to speak out about their own vulnerability. We need to measure it perhaps as part of ESG, the S part of ESG, but you need to have it as a strategic imperative. The third one is organizational accountability. It's critical to enabling well-being to be something that is appreciated and lived by everyone in that kind of culture. The fourth one is individuals. You know, we all need to take our own accountability for our own well-being. And employees are the same. You know, that phrase is, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I see millions of pounds spent on employee engagement programs, on intranets, where they've got fantastic resources to help people with their own well-being. And yet their engagement scores are really low. And yet people don't use those resources. We know that in the last year, 1 in 5 people have had a mental well-being problem, have had a mental health problem, 1 in 5. But they haven't been going to those resources. And why not? Because they're not either empowered to do so, they're not encouraged by role models, or we're not thinking about it in the right way. And that brings me to the 5th and perhaps most critical factor in employee performance, and that is the energy and the well-being of your people. The energy. And we all know probably this. This is a performance metric that many of you will be familiar with in your retail companies. Performance equals knowledge, plus skill, plus behavior, plus experience. But what I would suggest you need to do is multiply that by your energy. That's what's going to make the difference in the workplace. I see high performing teams, and the thing that makes it different is not their knowledge, it's not their experience, it's the energy that they have and the energy to work together. So, how do we even begin to look at this? One of the things we need to do is measure it. We measure what we treasure. Look, I know in all your companies, you've got all sorts of metrics. You're measuring people by their KPIs, you're measuring what's happening in store, you're measuring your customer engagement. But do you measure the well-being of your people? Do you use that to encourage conversations? Most companies don't do that. And they don't do it for a number of reasons. They don't do it because, you've got massive engagement programs. Frankly, they take months to do, and then you look at the results. But you can use a measurement tool like the 7 needs of wellbeing and performance that I'm going to take you through in a minute to help people not only measure how their well-being is, but also to have the most important conversation with their colleagues. So I'm going to show this on the screen for you now. There's a QR code if you want to do it. If you just get your phone and you click it against the QR code, yep, just like that. What you'll find is you just need to join up the Let's Reset 7 needs, and it'll come up, and then you can either follow it through now or later on, and we'll put the link there as well. So the 7 needs of wellbeing and performance are based on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, also on the 9 basic needs created by Richard Atkins, who is from Brighton College. And it's been developed by our psychologists and now being used by thousands of people across think about their wellbeing and performance. Now, as you can see here on this chart, there are 7 measures that we look at that all directly link to our wellbeing. The first one is security. Now, in retail, like travel, like so many other businesses in this last year during COVID, it's been a very challenging time. You've had many people on furlough. You've had to restructure, reorganize, make people redundant. The security that people feel is really being challenged. And you might feel now, but as perhaps a leader in an organization, that you know clearly where you're going, that you feel secure as a leader. But what I'm seeing is so many people across organizations still really fear that security. They've seen people come and go. They might miss people that they've worked with in the shop floor or in factories that they've worked with for years and years. And that makes them feel very insecure. And then we go on to catastrophize. So they join the dots and actually see stuff perhaps that isn't even there. But what we do know is that impacts people's ability to perform well. So communicate, talk to people. You don't necessarily have to give them good news because you might not still be able to, but help them understand how they can feel more secure. The second one, which we talk about, is autonomy and control. Now, the thing I hear, and we hear at Let's Reset all the time, is, I don't have enough time. There's a lack of time. There's the relentless meeting culture. I can see you smiling at it. I bet you're saying, yeah, there's people going to meetings. You don't even know why you're at a meeting, but you thought it was an important meeting. We saw it before COVID. We then saw a moment in time when people were making decisions really quickly. Only key people were there to make stuff happen, maybe in 6 weeks that would normally take 6 months or 6 years. But now we've crept back into that meeting culture that everyone goes into, and it is relentless. It's important to enable people to get back that autonomy and control. And there's lots of things that you can do. A couple of things that are really easy. Take meetings that last 30 minutes and make them 25 minutes. Take meetings that last 60 minutes and make them 50 minutes. Make sure you've got clear articulation about what you're going to do in those meetings. Make people understand that they've got a voice and a choice. And if in that meeting they don't have a voice, or actually they don't have a choice in the outcome, then make sure that it's okay to not be invited. I don't know how many of you are ever brave enough to start a meeting and then either realize yourself shouldn't be there and remove yourself, or if you're running the meeting, go around and say, do you know what? You don't need to be here today. Why don't you leave? But make them feel good to leave, not bad that they're missing out. Reduce late night emails and perhaps early mornings and weekends. I'm not saying that we don't have times when it's really important we can communicate. But one of our clients in the telco sector, she's now encouraged everyone to stop emailing at 6:30. Of course, if they need to talk to each other, they will do. And they'll do that through other forms of social media or ways that they can connect. But they have a way of stopping that communication, constant, relentless emailing. McDonald's, they do something very interesting in the summer. Like many factories, they stop at lunchtime. So people feel empowered to go and do the things that they might often do on a Saturday, they can do on a Friday afternoon. And you know what? Up until last year, they had continuous green quarters of performance. It wasn't diminished by giving people afternoons off on Friday. It enhanced their well-being. The third one is relationships. 12 years ago, I had cancer for the first time. I had a genetic cancer in my breast called the BRCA gene. I then subsequently had cancer 4 more times. I have a genetic melanoma. So for me, that moment was really challenging. I'm sure for many of you that have suffered something similar, the relationships that we have both at home and at work are critical. I was really, really lucky. Peter Cowie was my business partner at Oyster Catchers, and he did something fabulous for me. We had a very compassionate relationship. Every day he'd phone me up and he'd say, so Suki, on a scale of 1 to 10, how energized do you feel today? And if I said I'm an 8 or a 9 or a 10, he'd go, right, excellent, Sukes, off we go, we can do some work. But if I was a 2 or a 3 or a 4, he would say, you know what, today we're not going to work. We might have a chat about the kids or the weather, but we're not going to work today. And my clients were the same. And so were my friends. And do you know what? I felt so lucky and fortunate because what they showed to me is one of the emotions, probably the emotion that is so important in our lives. And that is love. And so often we talk about love outside work, but it's equally important inside work. If we love our colleagues, if we love the people around us, and we show them that we love them and we give them compassion, it can empower people to be the person that they need to be, and also to speak up when things aren't so great. I was listening to some music this morning by Ben Platt. I don't know if you've heard it. It's called In Case You Don't Live Forever. Oh, it's so lovely. And he's talking to somebody about just saying, do you know what? I haven't told you how much you mean to me. I haven't told you how much I love you. And isn't it interesting? Leaving parties are when I find out so much about people. And why do we leave it until that very last moment to say the things that we always wanted to? Why is it that we say at funerals, for goodness sake, that moment that we cared about somebody, that they did something to change the world? Why don't we say it now? Why don't we in the workplace say to people, do you know what? I really appreciate you for that. I love the fact that you do this or that. It can make such a difference. There are 4 more things. The next one's creativity. So important that we're creative, that we're energized, that we give ourselves a moment. I talk about the face palm. The face palm can give you a moment to turn your back, that fear of missing out. Don't be fearful. Spend some time learning something new. Be creative in the workplace. Then we have physical well-being. And physical well-being isn't just about exercise. It's about sleep. It's about the things that we eat. Sleep is one of the things that I have had more conversations with people in the last year than almost anything else. And I spoke to a couple of our psychologists, to Sophie and Jazz, and I just said, you know what? Actually, I have terrible sleep. I always put it down to when the kids and, cancer and life in general. And they said to me, Suki, it's interesting, isn't it? When you had children, you understood the importance of a really strict sleep regime. You would never let your children go to sleep, on their phones, watching the TV, without brushing their teeth, having a quiet time. But why do you think doing that yourself is okay? Why is it all right to sit in bed doing your emails, watching Netflix till late at night? Having great sleep hygiene, doing something the same every night, getting rid of this phone out of the bedroom. Oh my goodness, it has made such a difference. You know what? At the beginning, it was awful. I just thought, I need to be on the phone. I need to be there. But you know what? Since I've let it alone, it's been okay. It's made such a difference to me. And I don't wake up in the night with those worries and endless catastrophization that goes on. I just go to sleep. Then there's mental well-being. I took up meditation 12 years ago when I first got cancer. Swag Mukherjee is chief exec of Centaur Media, a business that I sold oyster catchers to a number of years ago. And he's taken up meditation. And I asked him why he did that. And he said, you know what? At the beginning, I thought it was kind of like a weird thing to do. But actually, it means I can really, really focus on my business so much more. And if you breathe just for a few moments every day, just breathe in, close your eyes, it can make such a difference. You just need maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Look away from your computer, get up from your chair, just walk around the office or wherever you are in the workplace, and just take a moment to pause. It can be so good for our mental health. And finally, we have purpose. So I love this quote from Henry Thoreau. Most people live lives of quiet desperation and go to their grave with their song still in them. Finding our why is so critical. And you know what? We did the 7 needs with a retailer, a supermarket, not so long ago. And their head of marketing phoned me a few weeks ago and she said, I'm going to resign from work. I've been here 6 years. And you know what's made me think that I need to do it? I did your 7 needs of well-being and performance. And I realized I've got a great job. I have a great husband. I've got wonderful friends. I've got a really great life. But I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I want to do something more. I want to really believe that what I'm doing is make a difference to myself and to the world. So she's resigned from a job and many people were really, really surprised. But she knows that she wants to make that difference. So there we are. There we have it, the 7 needs of well-being and performance. Security, autonomy and control, relationships, creativity, physical and mental well-being, and purpose. Those are the things that can drive us to be more energized at work. to be more energized with each other, to be more compassionate as leaders. Many, many people that I see are diminished by going to work. They're not energized. But can you imagine an employee value proposition in a retailer like yourselves that says, come to work and become more energized? Come to work and we will enhance your life. We won't diminish it. We will enhance your life by putting the well-being of you and those around you at the very, very heart of the organization. I think that this is the time to do this. Out of COVID, some great things can happen. Bring back better is something that so many people are talking about, but I believe that this is the moment. At Let's Reset, I think we're so privileged to be working with some outstanding companies that by putting the well-being of their workforce, by putting their own oxygen mask on themselves as leaders, they are making a difference to both themselves, their companies, and society as a whole. Thank you.